Well, Trump will go to the Super Bowl. An executive order may be coming to end the Department of Education. The Mexican and Canadian tariffs were a big fugazi for about the first hour that the market was open yesterday. And then, of course, even Canada came to an agreement with the United States after Mexico came to an agreement with the United States. Now, sure, the tariffs are only delayed for 30 days and they could come back, but let's be real. This was all part of the art of the deal, or as some people are now calling the farce of the deal. That is, we had a whole lot of bullying and bark with very little bite. But then again, Donald Trump is able to argue, hey, now we're getting not only our troops on the border, but we're getting 10,000 troops on the border of Mexico on their side to help us fight cartels. We're getting border troops on the Canadian side because 1% of all the fentanyl that comes into the United States comes in through the Canadian border. So obviously, we've got to really seal that northern Canadian border. But it's interesting because to Donald Trump, he never actually really saw tariffs as a tool that he would rely on long term, although some feared that he would really like the revenue from them. A lot of people always saw them as a negotiating tool, and I think that's exactly what Donald Trump got. Now, there were hopes from people that Donald Trump's tariffs would end up leading to so much revenue for the United States that maybe we wouldn't even need a federal income tax. But let's be real, tariffs, as we calculated yesterday and saw through research yesterday, cost us somewhere around $1.50 for every dollar of tariffs we collect. So they're pretty dang inefficient. Things that are also inefficient and things that are just, I always want to let you know when my opinion's coming through as best as I can, but things that piss me off are when you have people like Joni Ernst constantly throwing stuff at Elon Musk, and Elon Musk is picking it up hook, line, and sinker. There is never a question from Elon Musk about what Joni Ernst is saying, because when Joni says something's bad, it's bad because it makes Doge look good. Now, look, don't get me wrong. I love what Doge is doing, and I hate government waste just as much as the next person, okay? Like, let's be real about that. We can all agree on that. We can all have, coffee over that or I don't know, whatever, a croissant, unless those are tariffed over that. But the point is, this Joni stuff with Elon is just getting out of hand, just like the focus of this camera. Man, what is this crap? That's probably, okay, I'm not going to say it. Anyway, so take a look at this. Joni says, despite the fact that Moroccans have been making pottery for thousands of years, USAID spent more than $2 million for Moroccan pottery classes and promotion. Elon Musk replies to this and says, good grief, with a quote tweet. Now, this would make you think that this $2 million drama was new. Like, oh my gosh, thank goodness Doge is exposing this madness, and hardworking senators like Joni Ernst are pointing out the flaws in the ways of the government spending. And after all, it is true, it was spent. It was a problem. In fact, it was so much of a problem that the program was exposed by the New York Times and many other political reporting agencies all the way back in 2011. This Moroccan pottery drama, I remember from back in the Obama era. Yeah, the Obama era. That's when this drama was happening. And yes, it was a mistake. It was wasteful spending. It was exposed. And it was a huge embarrassment for USAID. But Joni doesn't tell you that that is a 14-year-old issue. And Elon is eating it hook, line, and sinker, like, this is why we're putting USAID in the wood chipper. Okay, but wait a minute. You didn't ask her when that happened or what the details were. You just bought it. And she didn't offer any of those details because it would kind of make her look silly. Like, are you just Googling? Or like, honestly, I feel like she's honestly doing something like a ChatGPT. Give me 100 examples of wasteful spending that the government has done over the last 20 years. And then she's just tweeting out a bunch of old crap. Like, give me new stuff, okay? Like, let's talk about condoms going to Gaza. Oh, wait, even that is probably wrong. We'll talk about that in a moment. But the IMC who received that money is not spending the money on condoms going to Gaza. At least not $50 million of it, or potentially even any of it. We'll talk about that in just a moment. But yeah, again, I'm not here to say that the government spending is right. There are plenty of examples of poopy-doopy. For example, NGOs that are doing nothing, trying to bolster climate change in African countries. Why? Okay, they have more problems than climate change right now. And yet they're receiving millions of dollars. That is real waste. But now we're distracting real waste and conflating real waste with old news that's been dealt with 15 years ago, and it just hurts Elon Musk's credibility, and it hurts Joni's credibility. So, like, there are a few ways you could look at this. One is you're somebody who's going, oh, Kevin, you just sound like a shill for the government. Okay, that's like the low IQ answer, okay? Then there's like the like smart person who's watching this going, yeah, I mean, like, it's still not good that the government wasted that money, Kevin. And I'm like, I agree, it's some bullcrap. Like, Moroccan pottery classes $2 million is stupid, right? Absolutely. But, I mean, it does weaken their credibility if it's so hard for them to find waste that they're having to go back 14 years and they're probably using ChatGPT to help them. It just makes them look weaker at what they're supposed to be doing, which is finding current waste that we could actually save money on. See, I am so in support of what Elon is trying to do with Doge that I don't want them to look like clowns and fail. And this is clownish. And I think smarter people look at that and go, yeah, you know, they shouldn't be using the old stuff. Maybe they should be a little bit more critical and double check things first. Now, I want to really talk about JOLTS and China tariffs and what's going on with the Fed buyout and all this good stuff. But since we're on the topic, I may as well just quickly hit USAID. Look, really quick primer, okay? JFK founded USAID in the Cold War. They did this to counter Russian propaganda. This is really simple. You go into broke areas and you help American farmers by buying their rice, US-made rice. Did you know we grow rice? Sacramento. You know where the Delta smelt is? Yeah, we grow rice over there, okay? Just saying. We also grow some in Louisiana and some other places. But point is, we then take that rice from our American farmers. We probably overpay for it, which is fine because it's a form of supporting Americans, which I'm all for. And then we slap a giant U.S. logo on it and we send it to Africa. And it's part of a U.S. government propaganda campaign. I'm not saying this is how money should be spent. I'm just saying what I'm solely going through what the point of the program is. See, look, sacks of rice with USAID on it, okay? It's all part of the psychological manipulation. Again, I'm not saying it's necessary or how effective it is. I don't know. But anyway, you do get some crazy things, which are indeed egregious, and this is the stuff we should be pointing out, like this. $1.5 million. This activity aims to advance diversity, equity, and inclusion in Serbia's workplaces and business communities by promoting economic empowerment and opportunities for LGBTQI plus people in Serbia. It will foster an environment that increases employment potential for LGBTQI plus persons, okay. Expands opportunities for entrepreneurs, LGBTQI plus entrepreneurs, and reduces workplace discrimination. Okay, so $1.5 million for this. Now that's the kind of waste we should be talking about, because this seems crazy. Okay, sacks of rice, you could sell me on that. DEI in Serbia, I don't know about that. Anyway, all right. So this quickly wrapping it up. This 50 million. Oh, wrapping it up. I need more coffee, and I need something in this coffee. $50 million in condoms. This is an argument that has been made by the Trump organization or Trump administration that we have sent two $50 million buckets of money to Gaza, to the International Medical Corps, and they're spending it on condoms. First of all, USAID gets condoms for like 5 cents, and if they were able to just buy condoms, they would be buying billions of condoms, and we really don't need that. Actually, I think 50 million is basically exactly 1 billion condoms, and that's not needed. That's also been what's reported as false. It's just sort of taking a quick look at what IMC at least does. IMC argues that they've received, this is their POV, so it could be biased. You know, maybe they don't want to tell you about the money they're spending on condoms. I don't know. Just saying their POV is that they received $68 million from USAID to support operators in Gaza since the war began. In particular, they had 2 hospitals that they're running with this money with a capacity of 250 beds. 20 emergency rooms, 170 surgical departments, facilities to provide 24/7 medical care to roughly 33,000 civilians per month, largely fueled by the U.S. government, safe deliveries of 20 babies per day, blah, blah, blah. Okay, look, also get it. Americans are gonna be like, yeah, but bro, $68 million, that could renovate some nice hospitals here in America. Well, I totally agree. The argument that the government makes is that, well, when all the bandages that they're getting over there and the kids are getting taken care of by U.S. products, hopefully they don't turn into terrorists. I don't know what the ROI of that is, okay? That is something we could debate. But again, it just goes to show that the deeper you dig on this stuff, usually past what I call the Twitter or X level, the more it's kind of like, all right, like it's not as salacious as they say. It's, like there's probably some rationale to at least some of it, not saying it's good. But I think that's why Marco Rubio is now taking over USAID, and he's saying, oh, we just have a few bad apples. So rather than killing the entire program, now all of a sudden it's, oh, we just have a few bad apples. Insubordination by some of the people inside USAID. This is very different from what Elon Musk alleged, which is that USAID is an evil and criminal organization and it was time for it to die and that I'm feeding it to the wood chipper. Some people say he's got like a vengeance against USAID because of his time growing up in South Africa. I don't know if any of that stuff's true. I do think that something that is sus is like, why does the BBC get, 2.6 billion pounds of USAID aid? I don't know. Maybe the BBC then's gonna write nice stories about the United States or something. I don't know. To me, it just screams government propaganda, but then again, that's what JFK created the damn thing for. He created it for government propaganda. So, like, if you were going to look at a government propaganda organization, then you're going to expect to find government propaganda in it. Then it makes you wonder, though, what, again, is the ROI, the return on investment. I think that's what everybody's sort of focusing on now. Of course, this is leading to people like AOC freaking out, saying that Elon is putting 19-year-olds in the treasury, that he's morally vacant, he's one of the most unintelligent billionaires I've ever seen. Other people are responding saying, you're a bartender who became a representative, and you wouldn't know intelligence if it bit you in the... Never mind. So people have a lot of critical things to say. What I do know with almost certainty is that there will be a lot of lawsuits around this, and I think Elon Musk is finding younger people. I don't have an issue with younger people. I remember being, in my early 20s, and you're like, come on, like, ageism sucks. And I think younger people can do some incredible things. But honestly, I think Elon's picking some younger folks because he knows it's just a matter of time until there's some kind of legal injunction against what Doge is doing, until courts can sit around for 2 years and figure out what they want to do with Doge, and by then it's too late anyway. And so I think Elon's like, yeah, let's get as much done as we can ASAP and treat it like a startup because the clock is ticking. Not a bad idea, honestly. Something else that's not a bad idea is paying attention to what's going on with the JOLTS data. We just hit a 3-month low on job openings and labor turnover, 7.6 million versus the 8 expected, 8.16 revised for November. Below all estimates but one. Professional business services pulled back, finance and insurance pulled back. Hiring rate is just at 3.4%. This is the lowest in a decade. And the quits rate is just at 2%. Which might explain why only 20,000 people have accepted Donald Trump's federal buyout so far. He was targeting 100 to 200,000 people to quit from the government, and so far it's only been 20K. Now, that number could grow, and the hiring freeze is still in place, but it definitely suggests there's a little bit of softness in the good old labor market, which then people start wondering, like, oh, does that mean the stock market's overvalued? And Howard Marks had an interesting point on this. He's like, buying at these values is buying at a poor valuation. However, we're not at a bubble yet. In fact, if you buy today, you're sort of betting on the market bubble. He's basically saying, the euphoria is yet to come. Ooh, this sounds delicious. Anyway, China's tariffs are like puny, okay? These are like the smallest like PP tariffs I've ever seen, pricing power tariffs. China... clearly is trying to seek some sort of leverage against Trump. They're opening an investigation into Google. They've already had an investigation going into Nvidia for a few months. Now they want to potentially launch one into Intel because the vast majority of Intel's revenue comes from China. These are seen as sort of like pre-retaliatory, but they only named like 80 products worth about $14 billion in trade. And, you know, we are planning on tariffing like $525 billion worth of their stuff, which is, you know, I mean, geez, I can't even do that math in my head. It's going to be like a lot. It's like, what, 80 times? 525 divided by 14 billion. Oh, yeah, see, it's too early for this. 37.4 times the amount of tariffs. Wow. Yeah. So anyway, okay. So then we've got Palantir to talk about. Wow. So Palantir is an interesting one. Obviously, the DeepSeek moment is something that could benefit a company like Palantir. In fact, as we've been talking about for the last couple of weeks, the commoditization of LLMs is a big boost to service companies. And I've specifically mentioned companies like Palantir, but also Google, Meta, Amazon, and otherwise, because it makes sense. Like, it basically just lowers the cost of you providing your service. Now, yes, that could lower the barriers to entry for other companies to come in and compete with you, but Palantir has so much freaking cash, their ability to adapt is going to be really incredible. So this is phenomenal. The problem that you really have is the valuation of this company, right? And it's been a problem for a while, except it's such a retail favorite and nobody really cares about the valuation that the stock just keeps going up because people aren't selling it and people are only buying it because it keeps going up, which is incredible. It's like, congratulations, this is awesome. Commercial revenue is up 52% year over year, which is great, and it's expected to grow 54%, which is an acceleration of growth, which is fantastic. It's music to everyone's ears. And government revenue is even up 45%. People worried that was going to slow down. Now, Palantir is a whole lot more sexy than Salesforce, but just think about this for a moment. Salesforce has a net margin, which means, you know, when they bring in $100, their bottom line is about 16.1%. So they bring $16.1 to the bottom line. Problem is, their revenues are only growing at like 8 to 9%, so a lot slower growth, right? Palantir's net margin is actually a chunk lower at 11.2% on net. That's the bottom line. That's not gross. All the gross margins at these software companies obviously are always very, very high. But anyway, that's 70% lower than what you have at Salesforce in terms of net margin. Now, they're growing, yes, at, you know, combined with government revenues, are growing at somewhere between, they're estimated to grow somewhere around 30% over the next 9 years. Let's assume for a moment, I'm going to be generous, that they grow at 36% over the next 9 years. Well, if they grew at 36% compounded for the next 9 years, they would finally reach the revenues that Salesforce has, which is interesting because if you compare the market capitalization of these companies, Palantir is trading for about $235 billion. Salesforce trades for a market cap of $325 billion, which means Salesforce has 9x the revenues, and it costs you, let's see, $235, it costs you 38% more. So 38% more money into Salesforce for a company with 9x the revenues and higher margins by a good chunk, net margins at least. Now, the net margins, the reason people don't love those is, you know, you look at the net margins versus the cash flow. The company pays a lot, Palantir, a lot of their money out in stock-based comp, which obviously then when you look at adjusted EBIT is added back in, but you know, that pisses people off. You could see it yourself here, okay? So here's the revenue figure, the 827. You've got net income of, what is this net income here? 779 attributable to shareholders over here. Actually, that might even be less than the 11% I calculated, I think, from the annual figures. So slightly on the lower side. Now, again, the assets are amazing. I mean, we're sitting on $2 billion in cash plus another $3 billion in marketables. $5 billion in cash is freaking amazing. You've got current liabilities of $1 billion, so whatever. So you've got $4 billion of free cash, which is remarkable, right? Here's the stock-based comp, which is well in excess of their net income. So when you add the stock-based comp back into their net income and you sort of do some other cash flow adjustments over here, the net cash that they're actually earning in a year is around $1 billion, which is really cool. But, you know, then what you have to also be careful of is you take $1 billion and divide it by 235. You know, this is a return on your cash, like cash flow divided by market cap. Your return on cash here is not 1%, it's like 0.46%, which if you go to investor relations, you can do this with any company. I'm actually a big fan of doing this. You go to like Enphase, I'll just give it to you really quickly. You go to Enphase, your return on cash right now, because the stock has fallen so much, your return on cash right now at that company is somewhere around like 12 to 14%. It's so good. Now, I'm not saying you should buy Enphase instead of Palantir. I'm not trying to give you advice. Point is, that is an interesting metric you might consider comparing. Like Tesla even has a better return on cash than this. This is an interesting one. But then again, you know, there's no sign right now of Palantir stopping. This kind of keeps cranking. Sure, the valuation's... But they're certainly beating. I mean, they beat expectations, so you got to give it to them. Speaking of expectations, Donald Trump has expectations of creating a sovereign wealth fund. Now, this is interesting because usually companies with surpluses do this. See, Norway has a sovereign wealth fund of 1.7 trillion. It's the largest in the world. China at 1.3 trillion. Saudi Arabia, 925 billion. That's the one you keep hearing about, investing into companies like Lucid. Excuse me. And then you got Singapore at $770 billion. These are usually companies with a surplus. Like, they make more money or collect more money than they actually spend. And so then they go invest it. And the benefit of investing it is that you potentially earn money on your investments, and then you have to tax even less. It's kind of cool, right? It's a great thing. Donald Trump is now potentially suggesting maybe the wealth fund could acquire TikTok, and then that way it's like pseudo-government controlled. I don't know how I feel about that, government-controlled social media, but then again, we basically have that at X. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to do that. Anyway, so yeah, that's interesting. Then you've got Elon Musk freaking out about some people getting exposed, their identities getting exposed working for Doge, and he calls this a crime, so he started going on a banning spree. Whatever. Apparently there was even one person who, and I thought this was kind of brilliant, they made a Substack where they wrote, "Why Doge?" And, you know, their author name is one of the people whose names was leaked, so if you Google their name, it would come up. And in order to see the Substack, you had to pay $1,000. And so if you did, and then you subscribe to the Substack, you would see that it was actually blank. It's just why Doge, why I gave up my 7-figure salary to save America. And it's literally blank. There's no discussion other than some comments that say poetically blank. Very interesting. Now, it's unclear if anything other than the Cybertruck is going to be affected by China's tariffs, but there are potentially some downsides, people say, to Tesla from Elon's politics, given European sales for Tesla vehicles plummeting in January. You can see negative 18% in the UK, 63% France, Sweden 46%, Denmark 40%. I mean, these are low numbers, though, so I don't know how much this really matters. I do think it's interesting that whoever put this chart together didn't include Germany in it. They're trying to highlight Europe, but they didn't include Germany in it. Is it potentially because Germany is positive year over year in January and that just went against their thesis? I don't know, but Germany should have been in there, so I thought that was a little weird. El Salvador apparently is willing to accept some of our political prisoners, or not, sorry, necessarily political prisoners, just American criminals for a small fee. These are scary jails to be in, by the way. These are like 80 to 100 person jail cells. Yeah, they're pretty bad. So you might consider like looking on YouTube, El Salvador prisons. Like, you don't want to be sent to one of those. Hey, might deter some crime though. And then the latest Microstrategy preferred stock option did get a little bit of pushback. Had to sell for about a 20% discount to get those preferred stock options out there. Some people are wondering, you know, maybe MicroStrategy was just shooting too high on a potential, you know, future price, or you know, appetite is slowly slowing because Bitcoin is slowing down a little bit. You know, it's struggling to stay over 100K here. I know that Don Jr. is really excited about Ethereum and said that everybody should buy Ethereum. I think he forgot the hashtag not personalized financial advice, but certainly sounded like he was trying to give a good little hint there. Here, go buy some Ethereum. Kind of interesting how politics has mingled in with finance, and now we have politicians saying things that, as a dude on YouTube who's also a financial advisor and has lots of licenses, would just not ever say. But anyway, so is the world we live in. So if you find this content helpful, make sure to subscribe to the channel, and folks, we'll see you in the next one. Goodbye and good luck.
Why not advertise these things that you told us here? I feel like nobody else knows about this.
We'll try a little advertising and see how it goes.
Congratulations, man. You have done so much. People love you. People look up to you.
Kevin Paffrath there, financial analyst and YouTuber. Meet Kevin. Always great to get your take.